welcome to Icon. I'm so glad that all of you are here. My name is Kelly and I'm the pastor here at Icon, and I'm just thrilled that all of you are joining us online this morning. Hopefully you all are awake, have your coffee in hand. This is my second cup this morning because, well, it just was necessary today. But I'm just really glad that all of you are here. I'm looking forward to spending Sunday morning with all of you. I just have a few things to go over, and then we will get into worship and today's message, which Pastor Sabrina is going to be giving today. So I'm really excited to hear what the Spirit has put on her heart and what she has to say to all of us this morning. So just a few things. The first thing is here at Icon, we, especially right now when connection is really just a lot more difficult, connection matters to us. And so we want to be able to stay connected with all of you. So if you're new, or maybe if you haven't had a chance to do so yet, we would love for you to click on the connect button in the chat. And that will take you to a place where you can fill out a connect card with all of your information, just so that we are able to stay in touch with you, to keep you up to date on all the different things we have going on around here. We just think that that's really important right now. So we'd love for you to take a few seconds at any point this morning and go ahead and fill that out. Another really great way to stay connected is by downloading the Icon app. That way you can turn on notifications and you can be made aware of when different things are happening. You'll get a notification every Sunday morning with a link to join us in the lobby before service. So yeah, go ahead and download that if you want to have just a real easy way to stay connected. And then another thing that we want to be able to do together is, even though we're not in person and we can't pray with one another in person, we still want to be able to pray together and to bring our needs before the Lord. And so if you today could use some prayer, if you have any kind of prayer request, maybe someone in your family or for you personally, go ahead and click on that prayer button and it will take you to a separate window, and one of our hosts will be able to chat with you and pray with you. And we can also send that to our prayer team so that we can just be mindful to keep you in prayer throughout the week. And then the last thing is this. I just want to say, and I know I say it every week, but really, truly, thank you so much, everyone, for your generosity, for continuing to give to Icon. We do not take it lightly, and we are so grateful that all of us can come together and share of our resources in order to see the church be able to continue going and doing the good things that are happening. And so thank you so much to everyone for giving. If you would like to give this morning, you can click on the button in the chat, and it can take you to a place where you can do so. And then as always, if you find yourself in a place of need, maybe you don't know how you're gonna pay for groceries, or maybe there's a bill that you have that you need to pay, or things are just hard, or money is tight right now, we want to know that so that we can help you. When we were in person, we used to do a reverse offering where we would encourage people to take cash out of the buckets if they had a need. Well, obviously we can't do that right now, but we still would love to be able to partner with you and to come alongside you and to financially support you. So if you have those needs, just email us at info@iconchurch.com and let us know what those are so that we can assess those needs and help you in the best way that we can. So now we are going to go into a time of worship with the amazing Arlene, and she's going to lead us in worship this morning. And so in whatever way feels comfortable for you, I would just encourage you to use this time as a way for you to be able to connect with God, for you to be able to just kind of bring your full self to the Lord, and to be able to have a moment of kind of centering and grounding and just remembering who you belong to. And then after worship, we will go into a message with Pastor Sabrina, and then afterwards we will see you right back here just to wrap things up until we go off for the day. So go ahead and we'll go into worship.
Good morning, Icon. Happy Sunday. I'm super excited to be here with you guys today. I hope you guys had an amazing week, and I hope that it continues to be amazing as we get into worship together. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you are making new wine. In the soil I now surrender, you are breaking new ground. You are breaking new ground. So make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my old food to carry a new fire today. Oh, 'cause where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom, the kingdom is here. I lay down my old things to carry a new fire today. Make me a vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. We worship you, Jesus. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing, but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine Make me your vessel. Make me an offering. Make me whatever you want me to be. God, I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. My, that the highest would welcome. I was lost, but he brought me in his love. His love. Who the sun set free, oh, is free indeed. How much I
Good morning, Icon. It's a beautiful day, and I'm glad to be here with you. I'm Pastor Sabrina Jennings, and I'm going to continue in the theme of who is God. Let us open with a prayer. O God, our liberator, who gives freedom to the oppressed and lifts up those who we would call the least, fill us with your spirit, that we would receive your word that you have for us today. Amen. So, when we speak about God, most of us have 2 or 3 names, images, or metaphors that we use on repeat. Shepherd, Holy One, Creator, Father, Savior. There's nothing wrong with any one of those. But what we have to remember when we speak about God is that we can say what God is like, but we can never fully say who God is. None of the names we use, descriptors, or artwork can fully reveal all that God is. St. Augustine said, "All things can be said of God, and nothing is worthily said of God." Nothing is wider than this poverty of expression. Thou seekest a fitting name for him, thou canst not find it. Thou seekest to speak of him in any way soever, thou finds that he is all. So today we're going to look at some art that shows God in uncommon ways, ways that we're not particularly used to seeing. They invite us to explore deeper into the mystery of God and find God revealed in ways we may have never seen before. However, we explore in this mystery with the knowledge and understanding that no one image or descriptor can fully and adequately capture the fullness of the divine. All that we can say about God is metaphor. It's a figure of speech in which a word denoting one thing is used in place of another to suggest a likeness between them. God is a mother hen covering her chicks in her wings. Jesus is a shepherd watching over the flock. The Spirit is a fire that inspires and moves. Yet, as author and minister Carolyn Bowler writes, to be useful, a metaphor for God needs to evoke 2 reactions at the same time. Say, oh yes, God is like that. And, well, no, God is not quite like that. With such limitations, this exploration may seem like a fruitless endeavor, but it's one we should undertake nonetheless, because how we talk about and imagine God matters. We place value on what we imagine God to be and experience the divine in the people, the places, and things that we relate to God. If we limit our understanding of God, we miss out on so much. And worse yet, limiting our speech and our images of God can distort our imaginations or turn God into a tool to justify evil and wrongdoing. And while there are many metaphors for God that liken the divine to inanimate objects like clothing, or natural elements like wind or fire, the art we're going to view today depicts God or Jesus in different ways of being human. I chose to do this because, as Gustavo Gutierrez, a liberation theologian, wrote, the Spirit dwells in every person, in people who form part of a very specific fabric of human relationships, in people who are in concrete, historical situations. If humanity, each person, is the living temple of God, we meet God in our encounter with one another. Our encounter with the Lord occurs in our encounter with people, especially in the encounter with those whose human features have been disfigured by oppression, despoliation, and alienation, and who have no beauty, no majesty, but are the things from which men turn away their eyes. And so, as we go through these pieces of art, I have a few questions Dan's going to put up that I would like you to reflect upon, and challenge yourself. The first question: how does this image of God or Jesus make you feel? Some of them might make you feel uncomfortable. That's okay. It might be a new or completely foreign way of seeing or thinking about God. But sit with that discomfort. Ask yourself if that discomfort is there. Second, how does seeing Jesus or God in this way challenge you? And third, do you see yourself in these images? Do they change the way you feel about who you are and how you relate to the divine? So, the first piece of art, Dan's going to put each piece up there. The first one is showing a depiction of Jesus as Jewish. This is on the left side is Bartolomé Esteban Murillo's 16th century version of the baptism of Jesus. And then on the right is Rod Burgess's reimagined baptism of Jesus with the traditional Jewish symbolism and clothing. Most classical and Renaissance art, like the one from Murillo, completely erases Jesus's Jewishness. In fact, like the one from Murillo, they show symbols of Christianity. It shows John holding a cross, when Christianity wasn't even Jesus's lifetime. The one from Burgess, you see symbols of Judaism. John there is holding a Torah scroll and wearing a shawl. It's important that we look at this because erasing the Jewishness of Jesus falsely widens the divide between Christians and Jews, and unfortunately has fed into a lot of anti-Semitic theology that labels Jewish people, past and present, as Christ killers. One has to ask, would Christians have gone along with anti-Semitism in the age of Nazi Germany if a part of who they understood Jesus to be was Jewish? The second painting is one called Mary and Jesus with the Papel Picado by Janet McKenzie. It shows Jesus and Mary with brown skin. Historically, based on the geography of where Jesus was from, we know that Jesus was of darker complexion. But again, in the classical European art, that art was created, and overwhelmingly the images showed Jesus as white. He's European. And unfortunately, that white Jesus has been used time and time again to give cover to racism. The KKK claimed Jesus was white and used that to further their cause, saying that it was a Christian cause, and that Jesus, who was white, was on their side. A study showed that people exposed to images of white Jesus, after seeing those, it intensified their view that whites were better. They rated white people more favorably. And I don't think that imagining Jesus as white is in and of itself bad. It's historically inaccurate, but it's not necessarily evil. For many images of Jesus that they grew up with show Jesus as white, and those are the images that feel comforting to them. However, if that's the only way we see Jesus, that distorts our image of who Christ is, distorts our image of God, and feeds into unconscious bias against people of color. And I heard a story about an African American pastor was telling the story is when he was growing up, his grandmother had that classic picture of, white Jesus, the portrait, white Jesus looking off into the sunset with the golden hair and blue eyes. And it had a deep impact on him and his sense of value. And so I wonder, how does our overrepresentation of Jesus and God as white impact our children of color and how they understand their own value and worth? We need to broaden how we see Christ, how we see God. The next image is a statue. It shows Jesus is homeless. This is by artist Timothy Schmalz. And at first, when you see this sculpture, it's not easily recognizable as Jesus. Many people don't realize it's Jesus until getting up close and you see the scars on the feet, the marks from the crucifixion. When the statue was placed out of the church in North Carolina, a woman actually called the cops because she thought it was a real person sleeping on the bench. Others responded angrily, wrote letters to the church, or called the pastor, were upset, felt that it was insulting to depict Jesus in such a way. Well, we read in Matthew chapter 8, verses 20, and Jesus says that foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And all throughout the Gospels, he was constantly traveling around, sleeping in boats, eating in other people's homes. I don't think it's too far a stretch of the imagination to say that Jesus did not have a home of his own. His home was everywhere and with other people. And Jesus tells us that whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. And I'm reminded of an old friend, Mr. Stransky, who has since passed away. But he was my first sociology professor. Just an incredible, very knowledgeable guy with a voice like an NPR speaker. He could have been on the radio. And we loved to get together and talk about our cats and sociology and things going on in the world. But he shared with us that prior to becoming a professor, he was homeless. And that has forever stuck with me. When I see people homelessness, when I see people on the street, I imagine Mr. Stransky, my dear friend, and just know that the person that could be there, the potential that they have, the worth and the value that they have. And likewise, I hope that through the statue could challenge us to see Jesus in those we see experiencing homelessness. So when we see someone on the street corner, we imagine that that could be Christ. And next is a portrayal of the Holy Family as refugees. It's by Kelly Lattmore. And I really love this painting because it shows the Holy Family in a way that is so contemporary, and if we could just imagine today in our South Texas borderlands, we know that the Holy Family were refugees, that after Jesus was born, the gospel says that an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took them by night, and went to Egypt. They were fleeing for their lives, seeking shelter from an angry and murderous tyrant, seeking for a place that they would be safe and that they could protect their baby. And I had the opportunity back a few years ago now to be a volunteer chaplain in one of the family detention centers that was holding women and children who were seeking asylum here in the United States. And just hearing the stories that these women told was absolutely heartbreaking. They often brought one child with them and had to leave others behind. They sometimes came after a spouse or a family member had been murdered by gangs. They had sought protection from the police or the government in their own country, but things were so out of control, and oftentimes the gangs and people causing all the violence and chaos had infiltrated into the government and the police, so there was no place for safety. And I remember one day as I sat with a young woman, she was probably around 23, 24, and she had a little 2-year-old son, and she had fled from such a situation and feared for her life and her child's life. And yet they had just gotten the news that they were going to be deported back to their country. And I sat with her, absolutely powerless to do anything to change that situation, and heartbroken for her and her child. And I saw in her the face of Mary and her child, the Christ. And so when we see refugees, I hope that we can see more than just a stranger, someone we don't know, but the Holy Family walking amongst us. Now next is another statue. This is called Christa by Edwina Sandys. And this is a sculpture depicting Jesus as a woman on the cross. And I know that scripturally and historically, Jesus was male, but I think there's something beautiful and powerful in this depiction of Christ as female, because we know that God is both male and female and all beyond comprehension of gender, and that God is often likened to a woman throughout scriptures and in different ways. In Isaiah, it says, "For a long time I've held my peace I have kept still and restrained myself. But now I will cry out like a woman in labor. I will gasp and pant. And in Proverbs, the divine is referred to as Sophia, wisdom. It says that wisdom cries out in the street, and in the squares she raises her voice. As Lauren writes, the theologian, she writes in her book, Wearing God, that habitually referring to God with masculine pronouns subtly teaches us to imagine the triune God as something God is not, male or exclusively masculine, and it thereby distorts our imaginations. We know that in the creation, it says that God created them, male and female. God created all of the creatures. God created everything. God created them in God's own image. And so all the different forms and all the different gender identities and gender expressions are part of who God is and is God. And I find this sculpture of Krista so moving, especially in a time when we've experienced the Me Too movement and when almost every single woman I know has experienced some level of sexual harassment, assault, rape. And to see the suffering of women related to God, to see that our suffering is even encapsulated in that. And the final image I want to look at is God in a wheelchair, or in the throne with wheels. This is, I couldn't find out who the artist of this is. But we see God as depicted in some of the prophets. The prophet of Daniel, it says that God's throne was fiery flames and its wheels were burning fire. So we see this image of a throne with wheels, or a wheelchair. For a young woman, Becky, who was in a wheelchair from childhood, she said that when I was about 12 years old, I felt God didn't love me as much as other people because I'm in a wheelchair and because I can't do a lot of things other people can do. I didn't see anyone with a wheelchair in the Bible, and nearly all the disabled people in the Bible were healed by Jesus. So they're not like me. But then she read in the prophets about this wheelchair of God's, this throne with wheels. And she said, this made me feel like God understands what it's like to have a wheelchair. And that having a wheelchair is actually very cool because God has one. And so through this reimagining of God and seeing God as the Almighty with a throne with wheels, made Becky recognize and realize her full value. And Jesus himself, even after the resurrection, Jesus has the scars and the hole in his side, signs of brokenness, signs of physical damage and impairment. And yet those became and are a part of who Jesus is. And so I want to take a moment to look at some of what y'all are saying in the chat. And see what your reactions are, and feel free to continue to share. Eamon says, I love the different interpretations, quite reminiscent of the nuances and differences of the canonical, I can't say that word this morning, Gospels. Yes. And Christine says, such a powerful perspective. I'm in awe. Oh, and Jenny wants to know who did the portrait of Mary and baby Jesus. That was by Janet McKenzie. And she has some other really beautiful artwork as well that's worth looking at. For sure. And so some of these pieces of art that we've looked at are based on historical knowledge and who Scripture says Jesus is. But even still, we remember that all that we can say about God is metaphor. None portray the literal and whole truth of who God is. The literal and whole truth of who God is cannot even begin to be imagined. However, when God says, let us create them in our image, we're invited to then see the image of the divine in ourselves and in others. When you are broken, pushed aside, or abused, having a vision of God or seeing Jesus as someone who looks like you or has experienced something like you aligns God with the marginalized, the oppressed, and the poor. It takes away the shame that society puts on women to see Christ as a naked woman on the cross. It takes away feelings of condemnation and inferiority to see a God who is brown like you. It takes away the guilt and the feeling that you're less than to see a God in a chair with wheels. We are called to search for God in ourselves and in others, particularly in the oppressed and the marginalized. And how would our world change if we always saw the reflection of God when we look in the mirror? If we saw the body of Christ in the hands of our neighbors? If when we look upon those living on the streets, or upon those seeking refuge in our country, or upon those who look and act differently from us, how might we act differently? How might our world change if we saw the divine in all of them? So may you accept to not only encounter God through others, but to be moved through those encounters to act for justice, for the God revealed in humanity. So I think when we begin to see that all people bear the image of God, that all people, all bodies are the temple of God, we desire and want good things for all. And so just close with a prayer. O Divine One, who is beyond all understanding, we accept your invitation to encounter you and others, particularly those who have been oppressed and pushed aside. Move us so that we would not only see, but act in accordance to the revelation of who you are in the world. In the name of the risen Christ, amen.
Oh, well, Sabrina, gosh, thank you for that. That was so amazing. Each one of those pieces of art, it just is so beautiful when we can use our imaginations to imagine what God is like and to learn to see God in everyone and everything and how that shifts our perspective. I want to read, I just saw in the comments, Kat just said this, and it's just so good. If we're projecting our needs and conceptions onto God, which we all do as humans, God will never be the same entity for everyone. God will always have unique characteristics that shift and change and shape based on how each person sees themselves, and that's not a bad thing. We have to understand that when we're approaching God, the way that we see God, we're carrying all of our experiences and who we are with that. And we have to understand that different people see God in different ways, and that God is so much bigger than just to be seen through our own personal lens, that there's just so much more to God. Christine said, the feeling to always label or fully understand things, we have to have that label to help. But with God, we just can't do that because he has so many amazing things. And then Kat said, again, that's why we have to learn to be more accepting of one another and not as ready to put God in a box and tell someone else they're wrong because of the way that they see him. Yeah, like that's just so good. And as Sabrina was talking, and sharing the different artwork, I think the one that struck me the most today was the one of Jesus depicted as being homeless. And I think it's because it brought to mind an experience that I had several months ago. My friend Nicole and I were together, and we were driving around and looking. It was like later in the evening, and we were hungry and we hadn't had dinner. And so we were driving around looking for a place to eat, and we finally found a Chipotle that was open, and it was downtown Austin. And so we parked and we went in and got our food and got back in the car. And when we got back in the car, we closed the doors, and then all of a sudden there was a homeless man that was standing next to the car. And so we rolled the window down, and he was wanting some cash. And so Nicole and I got out our wallets and found the cash that we had on hand, and we gave it to him, and he was really, really grateful. And then I started the car, and we rolled the window up, and he kind of leaned over and leaned against the car and kind of had his hand on the car. And for a second, we were a little confused. I thought maybe he was trying to steady himself, maybe he was having difficulty standing up. But then we realized that he was praying for us. And it was just this beautiful moment of just seeing the divine in this homeless man, and knowing that for many people, they would see him and all they would see is his homelessness. But in that moment, he was caring for us in such a profound way by praying for us. And it was just a really beautiful, beautiful moment. And I don't know that I've even shared that with anybody, because it was one of those, it just felt really sacred. And so just learning to see the image of God in everyone, and knowing that all of us together have unique things that we can bring to helping people to see God more fully, and that we see God more fully when we broaden our perspectives and broaden our imaginations to see fully who God is. So Pastor Sabrina, thank you for that message. That was really beautiful. And, that just, I think it helped so many of us to be able to walk away today having just a more full perspective of who God is, and challenging us to remember that sometimes we fail to see God in certain places, but that God really is everywhere and in everyone and in everything. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you for all of your input in the chat. It was just a really beautiful time to share with all of you. Just a reminder that if you have kiddos, here in about 6 minutes, we have our eKids service, so feel free to hop on and to join us for that. And other than that, we will see you guys all right back here next Sunday. I hope you have an incredible week, and we will see you in a week.